Hello, friends and enemies.
Wow. Why she gotta look at me like that?
Jeez.
That's
Side eye
coming in hot.
Which one's friends and which one's enemies?
Well,
No,
clearly
I
she looked
saw the
dead at
enemy.
me when she said enemy. So
No, that was not a good start to my hosting
loved
life here. Welcome back to episode 41 for the
Wow.
Pickers Market. Like, this is crazy. We have the original crew back together.
Yeah.
Jeremy, Keith, Tyler, and a new hosting voice.
Yeah.
It's Lisa.
You're
Yeah.
hosting today.
Yes, I am.
Nice.
First time hosting the Pickers Market. Can you believe?
love
I
it.
can believe it. Well deserved.
Yes, exactly right.
Long time caller, first time listener.
Yeah.
There's a low bar of improvement, so I'm sure you'll do just fine. When you got me leading off, I think you'll do better right out of the bat.
So actually, it was a pretty easy week for me to determine topics because they basically write itself lately.
Yes.
So
No
that was
question.
pretty easy. Actually, it was hard to decide what are we gonna talk about because there's so much going on out there.
Mm.
And yeah, I'm just curious when we are able to catch a breath again.
Hey, do you have any fun facts that Tyler likes to throw some stuff?
Oh, now
out
you're
there?
asking for a fun fact, Keith?
Well, no,
Normally
I
I get the
So
side eye
I
as we
get
get the
bashed
side
on the fun facts.
That's because yours are terrible. I'm
No,
wondering if she
well,
got something better. That's all.
We
That's
gotta
why I'm asking.
rename Tyler's because it's not
Yeah.
fun facts.
Yeah.
It's facts. Maybe Lisa has fun facts.
Yeah.
That's what
So
I
before we jump in the obvious topic for today,
Yeah.
I obviously kept with the traditions to bring some fun facts. At least one of the facts I brought is actual fun. So Tyler, take notes. So there is some speed limits, some weird, quirky speed limits in the U.S. with the number 41, and there's some streets, especially in Ohio and California, where there's a speed limit of 41 miles per hour.
That is absolutely shocking. I don't get that.
I never saw that.
Isn't that just inefficient from a cost sign perspective? Like, don't you get to those 40s in bulk?
Mm.
Yeah.
And now you got to throw a one on them?
Who decides does the city decide speed limits on roads, or who decides that?
I don't know.
I
I
think
do.
it's Your townships,
You're,
your county.
you're at the
depends
board meeting
on-
and someone's like, "Yeah, I got a good idea. Let's do 41."
I'm sure it's a township thing. I'm sure it's not a main city.
It's
isn't
not
it?
widespread,
Yeah.
but what I read is the reason they are doing it is they kind of try to catch the attention of the driver.
Mhm.
And because it's like, oh my God, like this is not normal, like this is something weird.
Yeah.
They actually should drive slower or should kind of stick with the speed limit, which I get it for people who are out of state or who are new to the area. I mean, it's fun the first time you see it.
Yeah.
And then it's like when you live there, it's like, so what?
But who
Right.
sees it? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Who
It's
sees
like-
it 99.9% of the time?
Right, the people who live there.
Yeah.
So it's probably, yeah, it's weird. There.
It is a little odd.
Yeah.
But
It's
hey,
interesting.
I would put it in the category of fun facts.
Yeah. And then I
Or
brought
sorry,
a-
Tyler.
And then I brought another fact with the number 41. Mainly it's not a fun fact, but I think it's educational or at least interesting.
Yeah.
At least I found it very interesting that 41 US states have some form of coastline, obviously sea coastline, but also Great Lakes and large rivers.
Okay.
And the largest the exposure to the most coastline has Alaska, which is not surprising, I think, right? But Minnesota, and that was very interesting to me, Minnesota has more coastline than Hawaii, Florida, and California.
Wow.
And I mean, Hawaii, it's the prototype of coastline
Mhm.
state. But when we take into account, first of all, Lake Superior, the
Mhm.
little bit that we have, and then the Mississippi, which is counted as a large river and coastline, as well as our 10,000 lakes,
Right.
depending on how you count it, even more than that, we have actually more coastline than the
Wow.
most obvious one.
I like that fact.
The most landlocked state.
Okay. I like it as a fact, but here's the thing. Like, is anybody in Hawaii, Florida, or California going to switch with our coastline for their coastline?
Good point.
Oh,
let's do
Jeremy,
the trade.
That was, I just wanted to hype up Minnesota,
Like how-
right? And Jeremy's like, oh, no.
Like, how many more
working.
draft picks do we have to give
Quite a
in order
few.
to get down to the coastline switch? I think there's going to be quite a few. So while we have more, I would say the desirability of the other areas is probably significantly greater. Though I'm slightly bashing it, but Lakeside is pretty solid. Like Lake
I mean,
life
tell that
living
to
like you
somebody
have is
with a
solid.
house on Lake Minnetonka, Jeremy. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
I mean, not in our price category.
Maybe I'm just jealous.
I am. So, but let's switch to the good part.
Okay.
We will talk tariffs today. What a surprise.
I'm surprised.
Yeah, right? That was a surprising topic. I mean, there's a lot going on lately. We have big tech cap earnings. We had a Fed decision, or not a decision, last week. We had a slurry of economic reports coming out last week, jobs this week. So a lot going on. But one guy in Washington throws it all off with new things coming out every day, especially tariffs. And the first question I have for you all is, tariffs introduced, is that already news of yesterday? Because when we think of, like, especially the Mexican and Canadian tariffs that got introduced, it got postponed for 30 days.
Yeah.
Not China though. But do you think that will come that way after 30 days? Or do you think Trump already got what he wanted? Or what is he actually that he wants from our friends south and north?
Yeah, a lot of different questions there. What I think the biggest thing that people should take away, and that I'm taking away, is this will be, it's a lever for negotiation more than anybody in the last at least 25 years, and probably longer than that. What's that?
Probably all of those combined.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we should be expecting that tariffs are going to be a part of the conversation going forward, because clearly he wants to use it as a lever to get what he wants. And as you said at the end, like, knowing what he wants, sometimes we don't know. Sometimes, he definitely wants wins. There's no question about that. Like, he looks at this as like, this is my means to a win. What those wins would be, sometimes vary from time to time. So whether it's going to be implemented or not, I don't know. And I think anybody who's telling you they know doesn't know.
Yeah, right.
What I would say from my side, though, is just expect this going forward. This is not, I don't think January is indicative of just, this is going to happen in January and kind of fade out. I think this is going to be part of our lives for a little bit.
So you think, like, for the next 4 years, for sure, this is just his new diplomatic,
I think for the better part of
tactic.
40 years has been his his negotiation tactic, right? Is a little bit of scorched earth, bring it back. Scorched earth, bring it back. That's kind of the only, what I would say, trend that I've seen. Gangl, maybe you feel differently or have something else, but that's what I've seen from that perspective. So tariffs are his number one tactic to do this at this point right now. Maybe that switches down the road to something else later on, but it does seem to be the tool of implementation for that kind of, hey, we're going to go aggressive and then we're going to bring it back. What do you think, Keith?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think tariffs, generally speaking, is a tax on everybody. So most people in the investment world, economists, don't like them. I think if you use them as a negotiating tool, it's fine as long as you're getting something and you really know what you're getting. This last one, I think, was the first one out of the gate. Seemed a little surprising, the 25 on Canada and Mexico, and it wasn't anything economically they were looking for, right? It was fentanyl, so which is different hard from us as investment people to say, okay,
looking to stop fentanyl. Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, looking to stop.
Can we get more?
No, not trade.
The other way around.
Yeah.
But it's
Stop. Thanks for clarifying.
I just want
I
just
assume
want our
more people
listeners to be
knew,
100%.
Not that we
more.
get flagged by YouTube. It's like, okay, you
Yeah,
guys said that
exactly.
this is not going live.
Totally kidding.
So-
I
But
hear you, Gangl.
just to be clear, it's like fentanyl from the from the south border, okay, but is there actually so
There-
much fentanyl coming from the Canadians?
The stat I saw was like, I don't know, whatever poundage they put in. It was like 50x what's coming in from Mexico versus Canada. So it's pretty immaterial. And then to say that you're going to do 25% on both, you would think you would, high grade that a little bit, saying, or 25 for you and 5 for you or something. If, I think it's negotiations. And I think this is kind of his first. I think it's going to be more of it on economic stuff of different prices and concessions that you get eventually on some, whether it's steel or oil or, different things like that. I think that'll be more directed down the line. So this one was a little bit surprising. And it's got a few people scratching their head, which didn't surprise me at all. It got paused for 30 days. I think that one just kind of gets kicked down the line and kind of goes away. I think you got some troops in Mexico. I think 10,000 troops. They kind of said they would.
That's what I was going to say is what did they get out of Canada I haven't really seen anything of like why they were paused, because Mexico, we got the 10,000
Yes.
Mexican troops coming to the border to help. But what did we?
I think they committed to a little bit more border enforcement.
Yeah,
Okay.
they
I
sent
think it was
more,
softer,
yeah.
but I think they
Okay.
committed
Maybe it was
to
that
some
50 to
level.
1 ratio or whatever. So maybe the
Yeah.
extra 50 people standing on the border now. I don't know. It's that one. It's a surprise. Again, I generally don't mind them as negotiating tools. This was kind of a.
And even more surprising when you think like he introduced the same tariffs on both countries,
Mhm.
which is okay. Like there's maybe a little bit more arguments for one of those.
That's what I was saying. That it's
Compared to the other,
what
so
it
it's
is.
like,
One
yeah,
is
where
like
is it?
you're
Yeah.
25 on one. Maybe the other one should have been 5
Mm,
if
yeah.
you're looking at relative. But we'll see. I don't think that's to Jeremy's ultimate point. I think this is the new norm for the next. I don't know if it's 4 years. I think it's going to be more front end loaded, right? I think that's going to
Yeah, I
be.
think so.
Yeah, I don't think it's 4 years, but certainly going to be heavy on the front end. Be my
Well,
guess.
but he doesn't, so the thing about that though is he doesn't need congressional approval for these things. So
Mhm.
you can, executive orders can slap tariffs. So even if, let's say in 2026 something happens, he can still do this.
Yep.
That's still an acceptable method for the executive branch to do. So it could be a leveraging tactic going forward. We don't know. I think that's the bigger thing that we have is we're dealing with a bit of a wild card, right? At the end of the day, we don't know.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's due to the trade imbalance we have, right? That means we're bringing in more stuff than we're exporting, and I think longer term, he'd like to see those numbers kind of equate. We're exporting as much as we're importing, and right now it's not the case. So I think that's the ultimate goal, but we're kind of spinning our wheels, I think, at the start here. What do you think, Tyler?
I mean, I agree with that last point you made, it as far as like the trade imbalance, but the question I have is like, I don't think that changes, right?
When were we ever balanced? When's the last time we were balanced?
Well, you sent a chart yesterday showing like U.S. consumes a significant portion of the world's GDP.
Like 29, was it 29%?
And then what we export is like half of that.
Yep.
Right. So like, and China's the complete opposite.
Yeah. And if you look at other countries, they're pretty, import exports are 12, 13%, 13, 12%. They're all pretty tight. Ours is like 29 and
so I just 13, don't know 14. What changes that.
I think one thing that changed, if you go back to when he first came in, the tariffs, in his first foray, we had a lot more imports from China. That's changed, right? That number's definitely come down quite a bit. I forget the number. It's dramatic. So, but the question is, well, how many of those?
But we also
imports
up with Mexico and Canada.
Yes, so that was
like
so that was the proxy. Where did
42% of our imports come from these countries? So like, where else?
Well, at least you can make the argument there that they're closer and more friendly. I mean, what he's done now maybe not as friendly.
Maybe that's why he wants Canada to become the 51st state. Is that helps our trade imbalance? Is that the?
But that was my question. That was my next question, because China was not so. I mean, they're open to talk, but they retaliated with counter tariffs right away. So they're not as like Mexico and Canada. They're not as diplomatic, I would say. They just slap on their own tariffs. And that's my question is, if that keeps that way and kind of Trump kind of our friends and allies north and south the border kind of a little bit dampen the relationships there, that China has even more reach in the future because they will look for other countries that they can trade with or strengthen relationships outside of the US.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you usually don't, you guys all, we have 3 homeowners here and you have neighbors. You usually don't want to take them off too much, right? You want to play loud music and throw garbage in their lawn, because eventually they come back at you with something, right? I mean, there's a action reaction, right? And the problem is we don't know what those are going to be, right? Is you slap this on, you go, and then you say, Colombia, you're going to have a tariff. Oh, well, now you're going to take the migrants. Okay, we're going to take that off. When you go on all this stuff, you got to remember, let's focus this back on businesses, right? Businesses have supplies and they have goods and they have things that they have to do. All of a sudden, where are my costs? What are my costs doing? How is this changing? This is that's the biggest worry I have with regard to this. Political worries are political worries. That's a different argument. But from a business perspective, it's like, if I'm a business that has to source these things and all of a sudden I have no idea what my cost structure looks like. COVID taught us that supply chains are pretty delicate. We got to be careful there. That's the biggest thing on my side, is if you add to these unknown elements, it just creates more fragility about that structure. And then eventually maybe we don't get what we want to do, and who knows what happens there.
Well, and that's a good point, because even with the 30-day pause, if these do go into effect, nobody knows how long he's going to leave them on.
Yeah.
So it could be the full 4 years he's in office, or it could be a day, right? We kind of got it close almost to a day. Well, I guess it didn't really start, but right. So like you're bumping up to a 12-hour window, and all of a sudden that they get pulled back. So now you have to change your model of pricing, probably, I would imagine. I'm sure people are scrambling to try to figure out what things are going to cost. And then all of a sudden they get pulled back. So now you got to reprice. And then now you have to wait 30 days to see if he does this again.
Yep.
Right. So it's, there's just so much fluidity and uncertainty around this that I don't think anybody has any answers. And I don't even think, to be honest, I don't think Trump or his administration know what they're going to do in 30 days.
Yep.
My guess, it just keeps getting pushed, and they'll get some concessions, kind of like what they got right now. But we'll see. I mean, the ultimate goal is he wants to bring more jobs back to the U.S., more manufacturing, more production. There's what you can do some of that, but that takes a long period of time, right? So that's not going to happen in 30 days, and there's certain things you can't probably ever bring back, right? That you're going to naturally have to import that stuff. So I think directionally it's fine. It's going to be a lot of noise, and as you know, ultimately, what do we care about? Our the economy and stocks, and I think it's just kind of putting not the blinders on, but you kind of ignoring this stuff, because if you
kind of have to,
if you reacted to some of the stuff over, it was like in a short period of time, it was like a week, saying, oh, these tariffs are coming, and all of a sudden over the weekend they're coming, and they're coming tomorrow, and then it was like, okay, last 11th hour, the 23rd hour is all of a sudden Mexico and Canada. So, okay, we'll give you something, and then you can kind of go back and say, oh, I got something, and let's push it 30 days, and they'll probably give it a little bit more. And my guess, this situation goes away, but to Jeremy's point, I think he'll find some other things that he wants concessions on.
Well, yeah, I mean, on Monday, the S&P opened up down like 1.5%, maybe, and then finished the day down 60, I think. NASDAQ was opened up down 2% and finished the day flat.
Yeah.
Like, it's just a lot of noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll hear anecdotal stories of certain place in Kansas is not going to get something from Canada now, and they lost their contract with whatever it may be. So you're going to see some of those stories, which sound bad.
And that brings me back to what implication does that have for consumers? And for example, like in the housing sector, like 70% of the wood, of the lumber that we import is from Canada. And those 25% would come in addition to an already tariff of 14.5 that is already placed on that. Or a lot of those what is the name? Gypsum.
Gypsum
That's
used for
drywall comes from Mexico. So that can increase housing prices if that gets introduced, and if tariffs stay for a while. Or auto parts, kind of, especially the more electrical parts that are in there, the more expensive a car gets. And estimates are for an SUV, it could be as much as $5,000 on top of that. Or food. I mean, Canada, obviously maple syrup. For example, a lot of grain. And Mexico, a lot of vegetables and fruits and all of that.
Yeah.
Is there any one that you guys think is the most important or most
Avocados.
That's the one I would say. That's
avocados. Come on.
What? I thought you said autos.
Well,
Mr. Chipotle.
Yeah,
over there.
right. Exactly.
I look at your guacamole where you get it from for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Chipotle's prices are already through the roof. Come on now.
That's
Talk about a direct hit on consumers.
Jeremy, what's your thoughts?
Okay. Not standing Mr. Green over there. Here's my thoughts. I'm gonna, I would say autos are probably most effective, but here's what we're doing. We're throwing a dart at a dartboard that's moving everywhere, right? Is that it's not moving side to side, it's not moving up and down, it's moving everywhere, and it's moving randomly. Good luck. We don't know. Wake me up when we actually have a number we can put around this stuff. Because again, we're estimating at something we don't even know if will be implemented. We don't know what level it'll be implemented. We don't know anything. I wish I had a better answer, but we don't. And so throwing a dart, trying to predict and trying to say this will definitely be affected by that, because the other thing we're not talking about at all here is these are the direct influences. but it's always the indirect stuff that pops up. It's the whack-a-mole, right? Oh, we got that figured out. And then 14 other things pop up on you on the right-hand side. So you got to be real careful in saying, yeah, these are probably the ones that are most directly impacted if this goes through. But there's your first big if. And then secondarily, like, what are the side effects from that? It's like, okay, yep, we're not bringing in as much maple syrup. Oh, now we put a maple syrup incentive on that, and that screws up somebody in Vermont, and then things go great. It's just weird. So from that side, we just don't know.
I want to toss this in here. So Landman, right?
Oh, look at that.
I had to throw this in here.
You couldn't get it across the last episode.
Yeah.
This is my episode.
But okay. So Landman, they talk about oil, right? Their oil industry is what, the 10th largest industry in the world, but the 10 that are bigger than it rely on oil, right? So if we start pricing 25% on top of the barrels of oil that are coming in from Canada, that has a whole host of right.
Everywhere.
That's everything.
That's
right. So talking about the whack-a-mole, it's not just oil prices go up 25%, but that means that the product that uses that oil is probably going to go up 25% as well.
Yeah.
And what
right? Or whatever that portion of the oil makes up
of
of the total cost, right? So
but
just wanted to.
But
I love that Tyler's due diligence is Landman. That's pretty solid.
It's solid.
He's like, based upon my analysis of Landman.
This episode?
I love it. I'm in. I'm 100% in on that one.
Also, what I read, especially the Midwest, imports most of its oil from Canada.
The
and
heavy
that,
crude,
and what I read is like a lot of refineries here are set up to refine heavier oil from Canada, but are not set up to refine lighter oil from the US.
Crude,
So people might say, okay, when we don't get it from Canada, we have enough oil. We're the biggest oil producer in the world. Just take our own oil, right? But this shows, okay, it's not so simple because the refineries are not set up that way. And that's to your point. We do not know in what areas this will actually draw, if it comes or not. I mean, I know it's kind of a fortune teller episode this time, and we're spitballing a lot of ideas. And the end effect, nobody knows in what areas it actually will flow into once we have a number. But
you can get yourself twisted up pretty quickly and pretty easily.
What I'm also curious too about is how much of these, let's say 30 days go by it and these tariffs do go in place, like how much of that cost is going to be eaten up by the company, and how much are they going to pass through?
As much as they can.
Well, but
that's what they'll try.
We've gone through the last 3 years of heavy inflation. Prices are already through the roof. You already hear people complaining about it, even though consumers are generally doing fine. People love to complain about it. But like, how much more is the consumer going to want to take until you start to see an increasing deterioration in demand?
But the thing is, Tyler, for some things, what are they gonna do? Because like
not buy Chipotle.
You cannot buy avocados.
Somebody's hungry this morning.
He's taking it as a personal affront over there.
I used the right example with avocados. I think I opened up a discussion. No, but with other products, you have to buy them, and some say, well, we buy the cheaper American product then if the imported one gets more expensive. And I'm like, well, if the imported one gets 25% more, like fictive number, 25% more expensive, the American producers probably raise their prices as well. Because why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
again,
you raise prices 15% instead of 25%, and it's still competitive.
It's still competitive and cheaper. So it's like, what at the end of the day, what should the consumer do?
Well,
things they.
And from that side too, it's the economic growth. I've often said is our economic growth is the stuff we like to spend on, right? That's how our economy really functions well. It's by spending less on the stuff we have to spend on and more on the stuff we want to spend on. If we have to spend more on the stuff we have to spend on, budgets are finite. You can't you can create money and just start printing press, but you're gonna have some real problems there. So from that side, it probably just has to take away from the stuff we want to spend on. So the airports probably won't be as full, and then the restaurants probably won't be as full, and then that again, it doesn't mean inflation actually goes up, because there's a balance there, right? Is that prices may go up in one thing, but if the consumer just says, "Well, I just won't buy that," and then they just pull back and demand goes down. So again, we're whack-a-moling. It's really, really difficult, especially when you have an uncertain event, right? If they were saying 20% tariffs are going in, we're doing it, and here's what the budget would estimate, and here's the number, and here's the implementation date, and this is hard, and we're going.
Yeah.
Then at least businesses could kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? Right now, everybody's playing the guessing game. And I just don't know how long we're going to be able to do that and kind of keep going as we're going. I just think that's the bigger issue, is the uncertainty creates itself I just need to pull back environment because I don't know what the heck's going on.
Yeah. Right.
Do you think consumers start to spend less to figure out their budget in case prices do go up 25%?
No.
I don't think
After the
consumers are
fact.
that forward looking, right?
Yeah,
like
I
you said,
mean,
after the
you have to
fact.
Just
see it
think
go
about, the people that you all talk to on a normal basis outside of this little wall here. Are they even thinking about that? No, it's like eggs prices are expensive, so I maybe want to buy less eggs. And then where I always think about where that rolls into is if because of the expenses, they start cutting jobs, and then people start getting worried, do I have a paycheck coming in? Then you'll see that spending correct real fast. So that's always where it rolls to me, is the sentiment around jobs and the fact that if, companies are saying things are getting too expensive, we have to reduce our headcount as a result of that. That could curtail spending real fast. I don't think it's tariffs are coming, so I got to ease up on until I see what it's out.
Do you think people would stock up on stuff ahead of tariffs?
Very incremental, not enough to
Like what? Maple syrup.
Your
which is-
avocados. How long can you keep those?
exactly.
How long can you store avocados?
You got a perishable issue there.
You can freeze them for a little bit, You got a freezer full of avocados.
Anybody wants avocados? Tyler's selling them out of his basement.
Right, exactly. Black market avocados. Tyler's
Is that
trunk.
the famous Midwest garage fridge that comes into effect then? For the avocados?
It used to be beer in there. Tyler's not
avocados. He will trade, with the neighbors. It's like, do you want to have avocados today? I have some.
Rationing. Yeah, I'm
right.
rationing.
No, this is just a tough subject. You just don't know what's going to happen. I ultimately think these 25% across the boards kind of go away. We get more targeted. I think that's ultimate. And I do think there'll be some added. I mean, if you look back to, again, his first presidency, there was tariffs and they're still in place. And then Biden didn't repeal them. They stayed in place. Yep. I think that's the kind of the mode we're going to go forward. Expect some more target ones. And I do think those probably will stay in place. And then whoever's directly affected will, adjust their production or
I think
whatever.
the hard part though is like the first ones were directed at tech and intellectual property,
steal,
and not things. Trying to make sure that they're not stealing anything. Whereas this is like fentanyl border. So it's like, what industry or products do you target to like?
That's why I think this one ultimately just maybe this what we got here, this 10,000 troops and whatever Canada gave. And I think I think we're going to start seeing more on. I think you're going to see more on whether it's cars or energy, that the heavy crude or something.
But that could also be an indication that it's maybe not here to stay in that amount, because it's hard to measure. Like,
that's what I mean.
When do you know it's resolved? When do you know there's no more need for tariffs because Canada and Mexico kind of fulfilled what the administration wanted? So it's hard to measure. It's like, when will it be over?
Do any of you have more than a coin flip? 50-50 probability of this?
No.
No,
and then ultimately, what do we do for our
Jeremy
portfolios?
brings us back on track.
It's that simple. It's like when it's a coin flip probability, you just don't know. And deal with the fact that you don't know, and uncertainty is going to be with us for a while. I think that's the best thing you can kind of say. And I've been focused, just trying to say, refocus on what you can control, because you're not going to have a whole heck of a lot of say in what's going on in tariff policy.
Yeah.
But there's other things you can do.
Are you changing any of your portfolios, buying
not one bit
stocks or anything like that?
I buy good companies at reasonable prices. We'll see what they do with regard to if that's implemented, how they can pass that through, and what it does to their earnings profile. And that's what I'll pay attention to. But right now, you cannot put a number on that.
No.
In my opinion. Yeah. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
No, I think you're totally right. So this was the fortune tellers episode. We come back when we know more. But let's end on a positive note.
Okay.
Mainly, I want to know some health tips of born and raised Minnesotans, because normally I'm not really sick. I normally get through winters fairly easy.
Okay.
But I had my fair share of sickness this year already. So I wanted to know because we're living in a state that is cold.
Welcome to
long
America, Lisa.
winters, and frigid temperatures sometimes. Is there anything special that you Minnesotans do in the winter to stay healthy in those temperatures? Is it nutrition, some drinks, some wellness? Like, I don't know, sauna.
Beer.
I heard
Don't
cold
get-
plunge.
Hibernate and don't get sneezed on. That's really-
That's the biggest issue. I think people, especially if you have kids in school, that if you get enclosed environments, right? In summer, spring, you're out. Winter, you're usually inside, more confined space. I think to Jeremy's point, I think germs spread a lot easier, and I think that's why you get sick. So if you can probably stay outside and do more walking. I'm a big sauna guy. I don't know if that helps. I just like them, so I take a few of those.
I also
a week.
heard like cold plunges help, which they kind of always
Well, what are we talking about? What sickness are we? Because you get a cold plunge ain't gonna do anything for you, but make you miserable.
and maybe like boosting your immune
Immunity.
system
okay.
to kind of be more resilient against all those flus that are, I don't know, every.
I wish I had the silver
bullet.
bullet for you, Jeremy. Do you have one?
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm constantly sick.
I thought I hear at least one good tip especially for our friends in the South who kind of
Wash your hands. I think
more.
that's I don't mean to be disparaging of anyone here, but
Wow.
wash your hands more frequently. And
And what
Jeez,
Jeremy
look at
thinks of
Tyler.
us.
Jeez. Tyler's avocados all over his desk.
oh yeah,
Tyler's
guy's all
avocados.
green fingered over there.
Good fats.
My go-to is exercise.
Mhm.
I mean, even when I'm sick, I'll still try and do something, just like sweat, and I feel like that helps. But I will do saunas every now and then.
How's the
Um,
post endorphin drop after when you're sick and you exercise? Does that just hammer you afterwards?
You feel like crap for probably like an hour.
Okay.
Like you feel like it probably got worse.
Yeah.
Because then you're like wheezing and all stuff. Yeah. And then it gets better because then everything kind of loosens up and
Then he eats an avocado and he's
then I eat my avocados,
Not anymore.
Can't afford them
Not
now.
anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
out of the budget.
Well, and the beer too. I know somebody mentioned the beer in the fridge.
Beer.
If it's Modelo, don't. That's going up.
Corona, you're out of luck.
Keys Corona.
Yeah.
Well, I heard. I thought I will hear some secrets here how
No,
to
I'm
get through the
useless.
winters, but it's like
You're on your own,
you have it
Lisa.
in your bones. The
Grin and bear it.
Minnesotans.
Grin and bear it.
Yeah.
Well, exercise, wash your hands, and
Sauna.
sauna.
I mean that. Yeah,
it's not
that's,
the worst.
it's not the
It's
worst.
not the worst
yes,
advice I've
yeah.
ever heard.
Better than drink orange juice. I don't know.
Orange juice. That gets expensive as well.
Oh,
Coming out from Mexico, those oranges.
Oh no.
Well, with that, I think it was a good episode.
Yeah.
Right?
Nice job.
Great job
Look at
hosting.
you.
Thank you so much. Until next week when we are back for episode 42. Thank you very much.